Happy Friday, everybody. It's July 18th, and welcome to another edition of Cocktails and Conversation. I am your co-host, Heather Holdridge.
I'm Larry Wynn.
And we are here. I mean, we cheated a little bit today, but maybe it's for the best because we pre-made cocktails.
She did.
Wow, I've already been called out. Okay, excuse me. I pre-made my cocktail because I'm in my office, which is a little awkward to be drinking in my office, but it's fine. Because my kids and they're downstairs and it's insane and loud. And
it's Spritz du jour week.
It's Spritz du jour. Yes.
So what Spritz are you doing?
I made a Negroni sbagliato, which is classic Negroni, right? Is Campari, sweet vermouth and Prosecco, and gin. The sbagliato is with Prosecco instead. And it's a slightly lighter.
It's lighter. It's fresher, right?
A little fresh.
I actually had it for the first time when I was in Lake Como last week.
Did you see George in a mall?
Oh, I did not. We scheduled some time, but we couldn't get our calendars to work. You know how it is. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I am making a Spritz. Also, it's Spritz generally for folks. It's three, often just very simply 3-2-1, 3 parts Prosecco, 2 parts some aperitif, and 1 part of just soda. And I am using an aperitif that we've tried when we were actually in Milan. This is from Venice. It's called Select. It's actually somewhat in between Aperol and Campari. So not quite as bitter as Campari, not as sweet as Aperol, which is actually almost basically perfect for me. So I am throwing that together because it's kind of, and we have actually been, for those who are trying to mimic that, maybe not have it. I've often been doing, Brett and I have often been doing half, 1 part, 3 parts Prosecco, 1 part Campari, 1 part Aperol, and then 1 part soda. So it sort of blends the two. And so we've actually been doing that.
So you're ditching the vermouth.
But there isn't vermouth in the Spritz part. This is just the Spritz piece of it. But yeah, no, because the aperitif will sort of mimic all that sweetness and stuff too. So it's actually quite lovely doing it this way.
Oh. Well, I'm gonna try to track down that Select stuff. That kind of.
I actually, I saw it. I was in DC this week. I saw it in one of the bars at the Eaton Hotel.
Yes.
So they had it.
Great.
Where we were when you and I saw each other in person.
Yes. Yeah, that was a pretty cool place. It was good to see you in person. I was like working. Not the same day, but I was working right outside the entryway to the Speakeasy, the Allegory there.
Yes.
And it's a very cool, that's a very cool bar to check out. Have you been?
To the Allegory?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, when I was in DC, was it last month? Last month. And it was good.
I haven't been there since they did like the overhaul with like Ruby Bridges and that whole thing.
So. But cheers. We have a lot to talk about, folks. It's been a week. Wow.
It's been a week from hell. And actually, the thing I want to start with, no, it's not Jeffrey Epstein, thank God. Although we kind of.
We will get to it because it's hard to run from, as Trump has learned.
It's hard to run from. Can't run from Jeffrey. So the thing I actually want to start out with very much intentionally is, when the Trump administration going back months, sought to lay off, tens of thousands of federal government employees. And there were a lot of lawsuits that were filed in order to stop that. What the Supreme Court has done, and this all happened, after the conclusion of the normal term, but through what they call the shadow docket, where they don't do regular oral argument. They just consider these emergency petitions for relief. And in the case of the State Department, Health and Human Services, and the Education Department, all in the last week and a half, the Supreme Court, they did not rule on the merits. So in other words, the employees who have brought suit may yet win long-term on the merits. But in the meantime, the Supreme Court said, oh, well, there's an injunction and we should lift the injunction because while we're still considering the merits, which is insane. And I just,
which means all, because like, what's the point of the merits when like you're just gonna what have they decided to do? We get to move forward, right? That's the signal that no, we're not going to stop you. So just go ahead and just start.
Well, and that's exactly what's right.
Having the impact, right? Happening. The negative impacts are irrelevant. And that's the point of some of these injunctions, right? It's like, hey, it's just
irreparable harm.
Irreparable harm. And they're like, whoa, yeah. I mean, it's just like it's so these layoffs, thousands and thousands in these departments, and effectively destroying the education department, which was the goal. And then the reduction in force at the State Department is also insane, because it's not like there isn't crazy shit happening all over the world just in the last few months.
Totally insane stuff going on in the world. The State Department, you're about 1,300 State Department employees were let go this week. And not for nothing, like even having 3 months warning, okay, or not warning, but 3 months time from when they said this is who we want to lay off, and then the Supreme Court says, okay, do it. It's still chaotic, and it's still a total
because they are bad at whatever they're doing, but they don't care because chaos is fine, and
they don't care.
They don't really care. They're not interested in functioning government. And the thing that's so funny is they try to make the point of saying, well, as if to say, well, it's not happening to spies. It's not happening. And it's only sort of domestic sort of folks that they're laying off. But I'm just saying that if I'm a spy and I need shit done and information and not be going into stuff where I'm going to get myself killed, maybe I want like the support.
Yeah.
Like maybe I want people sort of looking out for and watching my back and making sure all the information is sifted through, because I can't do that. I'm like trying to be who I need to be or whatever, let alone sort of all the diplomatic functions that need to happen overseas, and having conversations where like you want to be prepared in these conversations and not look like idiots. And these support services ensure that people are armed with the information they have so they can have useful, cogent conversations to make sure that our interests, America, but sort of the greater interests of the world, because that has been the function of America. This may seem bloated. It's one of those things where I think it's like, oh, well, we only account for this percentage of, X, and yet we have to pay for all of Y. And you know what? Fucking heavy sits the crown, right? Like if you want to be the big dog, you have responsibilities. And that has always been what America is like. Hey, I'm all for sort of cleaning up bloat and unnecessary stuff. This is not that. This is just picking a number and just chopping.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, Trump, in part, right? Like part of, especially younger voters, especially young men, part of what they found interesting about him, it was different, right? Was like he was going to get us out of the wars. Okay. He has failed completely at that. Set it aside. If that is your objective, then you are laying off.
Theo Von was complaining about that.
Right, but you're laying off all of these State Department people. And by the way, let's look ahead. You're calling now Secretary Hegseth is the Secretary of War. That doesn't feel like somebody who's positioning this as like, we're not going to be aggressive. But the third thing is, follow the money, right? Fiscal year 26, they have their budget that they've proposed. The State Department's budget, they are proposing to cut discretionary by over 20%, 22% cut to the State Department's budget. What's happening to the Defense Department? An increase of 13%. That's what the Trump administration has requested. I'm not saying that's what the budget's going to be, but if you are positioning yourself as being anti-war and we're not going to do this, and then you're cutting the diplomacy side and you're increasing the war-making side, that doesn't add up.
Well, it doesn't add up from sort of a realistic point of view, but Republicans have fetishized this idea all the way to the 80s, right? And when the Soviet Union fell apart was that it was because we had huge military and defense spending, and it scared Russia, and it made them fall apart because they had to spend to try to keep up.
Yeah.
Right. They think about it in those terms, and it's simplistic and not accurate, but like there is that viewpoint that people think that if we just build enough military, no one's going to F with us.
Well,
right?
And let's look at our erstwhile allies, Ukraine, who is 1/4 the size of Russia in population, and took out a bunch of their very expensive military hardware with a bunch of, $10,000 drones or whatever.
Yeah, which is amazing. The thing is, of course, but they are now newly Trump's friends also.
Right. Right.
So we're not even going to get into the Putin-Trump stuff today because that's just too deep.
We don't even have time. Who has time?
We don't have time. And too much. There's too much that a psychologist would have to get into on that. We don't have time for that.
But I do want to get into the education stuff. That was State Department education. He's trying to eliminate the Department of Education, which he cannot legally do because it was created by an act of Congress. But he's
effectively neutering it.
Well, but also decreasing its effectiveness, just like connect the dots, 2 stories just this week. So education department is moving forward with 1,400 layoffs. That is now in effect, basically. But there was an article today that the civil rights function, which is one of the core functions for the U.S. Department of Education, as people know, most of the actual education functions, curriculum, and all of that is managed through the states and through localities. So, shocker, they are not doing their job, right?
Well, no.
And they're not getting it done. And it's like, this is your core function. Linda McMahon, who clearly doesn't know and is not paying attention, doesn't care.
Most importantly, does not care.
Right. But she's like, oh, no, everything's fine. And we're getting our work done. They're not.
No, because
they're not.
Yeah, I don't think she and I and you and I agree with her on what their work should be. So
yeah, well, she thinks her one final mission. Crap. She said. But the other piece to this was that, and this happened right around the July 4th holiday. Because July 1st they were supposed to release all this funding for after-school programs, for English as a second language, for teacher recruitment, all of professional development, all of these things that they're supposed to do. This is money that Congress has already appropriated. And the Department of Education was like, no, we're just not going to give you money.
We're talking about appropriated money this week, because maybe it's not.
We're not going to give you the money. Okay. So Republican members of Congress, in the only evidence I've seen that they continue to have spines, Shelley Moore Capito, senator from West Virginia, she was like, y'all, this money needs to be given out because we said so.
Especially to this incredibly poor states like hers.
Yeah.
Right. Who all of a sudden she really cares about government assistance.
Yes. Well, so they've restored as of today, they restored the after school program money, because I can't think of a single person who's like, you know what? We shouldn't have after school.
Oh, I don't know. They're out. I'm surprised. I was surprised. I thought they'd be like, F it.
Well, but that's the thing. And this, maybe we'll talk about this in just a moment, but Congress completely having forfeited their spine. But the last one I really want to mention is HHS. So the Supreme Court also allowed reductions in force for HHS. That's 10,000 employees. So they're on track to be down about 25% in their staff. That includes cuts to the National Institutes of Health. It includes cuts to CDC. It includes cuts to the FDA. We're in the middle of our worst measles outbreak in 25 years. NIH is all the scientists that are laying off. They're basically just going to other countries. So the brain drain, that's happening.
Significant brain drain. And honestly, because of how they're operating, even if, say, there's a regime change and like Republicans get pushed out or whatever, if you're someone who's trying to actually have a career, if you think it changes every 2 to 4 years, no way, right? And that's what the Supreme Court is allowing that behavior, though, right? It's allowing it to be at the, without any long-term view of things, long-term function, which is really the greatest benefit of government and government funding, is that it has a long-term view. This ability for the executive branch to just go back on promises and rescind funding or claw it back or allow all these things to happen fundamentally affects anyone's long-term view of what their work could be. So if you have something promising and you rely on just stability so you can focus on the work, because that shit is hard enough, this is not the environment to do it in.
No, and I had dinner a couple days ago. The dear old friend I've known going all the way back to college. She herself is a college professor, and her daughter is now in college, and she's at Princeton, right? So, very intelligent young woman. And one of the pieces of advice she gave her a couple of years ago was, public service, working for the government is a great way to do important work and have a good, solid career where you have a pension. It's stable. It's, it's good employment at a time when everything is being disrupted, right? With AI or, all of these other changes in our world. And you can't credibly say that now.
No, I wouldn't. And it's really sad. And because these functions would be so lucky to have someone like her, someone who incredibly intelligent, well-educated, clearly had to work hard to get to where she is, to sort of say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to 100% optimize my earning potential. I'm not just going to just go for the bag. I'm going to go do good.
And this is what you want. This is what you want.
You want that because and we have benefited from it for centuries now. Right? It's not even decades, centuries of this behavior and that sort of that altruistic approach to what it means to serve and to provide back to the country. And it is crazy. And it's one of those big things where I think there's a big hearing between Harvard and the government there, but that is actually the fundamental piece of it. When people are like, well, Harvard has all this money. It's not about Harvard's money. It's about like this long-term structure that government has provided for people to do good for the world. That goes way beyond. You think about, I've been thinking about, because there's been a lot of articles about just the aid funding and how it's affecting HIV and AIDS across the world. But we're only in the place we are to actually help people either prevent or live with HIV because of a very long-term view and people devoting decades to figure out ways, and frankly, on the brink of actual cures for it, which seemed impossible when we were young. I mean, we were young, and as a kid who's sort of starting to realize that he was gay at that age, how scared I was about HIV, and that today kids, who are grown, they don't have to they don't think about it that way.
Think about it.
It's incredible, right? And I remember what it was like for me, just think about, but the kids don't have to think about what happens for the next thing like that, right? And you don't have the best and then the government funding behind it, then you don't get to a place where people are able to live. And I think that for me, from a very personal perspective, I sort of find it so remarkable how far we've come on that disease, and how people, it's so not the stigma it used to be, and it's not sort of the death sentence that it used to be. And but all this behavior by the Trump administration basically makes it very, very difficult, if not impossible, to take on the next challenge like that.
Well, and these cuts, whether it's there or some of the other ones that have already gone into effect, we missed the window really to talk about the horrific and devastating floods in Texas. But, was there a way that there could have been less loss of life? And, some of the cuts that this administration has implemented is this administration's deep disdain for FEMA. And they've stepped back, by the way, from wanting to get rid of FEMA, but for now.
It's such a weird thing to have disdain. I'm somewhat confused by why that, of all the things.
Well, it's just Trump's trying to move it all off the books. Off the books.
Yes. No, yes.
And the thing is, I was thinking about this. We were talking about, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday about the national parks, right? But it's happening at the state level too, state parks, county parks, etc. This big tax cut bill that just came through, right? Okay. SNAP benefits, some of the costs of the SNAP program is now needing to be absorbed and assumed by states. Medicaid costs are being assumed and absorbed by the states. The states have to balance their budgets every year with the exception of one state, which I need to look up because I can't remember.
Bring it up every time.
I know we say we're going to do it. We're not going to do it. Anyway, okay. They have to balance their budgets. So what is going to happen? One of two things is going to happen. Either they are going to just be like, you know what? We're not going to have SNAP benefits for as many people at a time when the need is great. Or Medicaid coverage, which includes nursing homes, as well as basic health insurance, as well as children's health insurance as well, right? I mean, there's all sorts of things that fall under the Medicaid umbrella. But the second thing is every other program. It's like, okay, you know what? We're going to hold the line on, SNAP benefits and Medicaid, but it means everything else is going to get impacted. Or you're raising taxes on people. So it's, and now the states are the bad guys while the federal government's like, good luck to you. I mean, it's crazy. And people are going to see this show up incrementally over the next year and a half, 2 years. But it's going to be a pretty rude awakening.
I always hear that, like, it's talking to someone who's like, well, who's going to where it all sort of hits the fan is like, if and when Democrats take over the next Congress, at least on the House side, it's like, all the stuff, the consequences will be a year or two downstream. And, people, I do get
Joe Biden's fault, Larry. Joe Biden.
What was it? I saw this recent thing where Bill O'Reilly was going on. It was Epstein, right? So maybe we're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to talk about it now.
Transitional moment.
But like, when Bill O'Reilly started blaming it all on Biden, and the interviewer was like,
Merrick Garland and whatever.
He was like blaming it on Merrick Garland. He's like, and the guy was like, dude, this all happened under Trump.
Yeah, Epstein died in 2019,
and it's just like,
that's 2 years before Merrick Garland was AG.
Exactly, it was before like everyone could be pissed at Merrick Garland. So it was just sort of like different conversations. So it's just sort of like, it was, yes, the Epstein stuff is crazy. And it's also amazing to me how it has become such a huge right-wing thing when, by the way, it all happened while Trump was president. So
that leads me. Okay. I think that's a good transition to our not to sanitize the Epstein stuff, which is horrific and crazy, but we'll do the men behaving badly. So Larry, I want to do my impression of the week for you. Okay. Who am I? Ready?
I hated Kiss Cam until this week. Ugh. That was incredible. And like the live commentary, and I find Chris Martin of Coldplay very annoying, but his live commentary on it was pitch perfect.
Yes.
Because it ended up being exactly what was happening. And the speed at which this debacle, this cheating debacle.
No, it's not debacle. It's delicious. Delicious.
It was just like, by the way, if Kiss Cam is starting, and I'm cheating on someone and my arms are around them and I'm just like, or
I'm just like playing it cool and you cut
let
away.
go and
Let it
just
go.
sort of
Yeah,
like
let it
be
go.
stand there and be chill, because guess what? Kiss Cam finds you. If you are like being affectionate or close, or if they see a couple looking sort of sweet or cute or whatever it is in love, it will find you. That is the whole point.
Yeah.
Because, and so the idiocy of it all. To just be like, oh, it's Kiss Cam, and clearly they were looking up at it. It wasn't like a surprise that Kiss Cam was happening to them at the time, and it is really just crazy. It spread so fast because it was so ridiculous.
Well, it was like,
oh my god,
amazing.
It's terrible and amazing, but actually quite hilarious because it's not.
That's the fun one.
Yes.
We can't not talk about Epstein. And the reason is it really has derailed Trump for the better part of a week.
They can't figure it out.
Well, because more shoes are dropping.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, and they're freaking out, right? I saw the note that how they were sort of going after the Wall Street Journal for whatever the birthday book, was it like whatever it was called, and people sending their well wishes, and Trump's little weird creepy, that was weird.
You mean the drawing?
Just the whole thing, and just like what you have to say, and like keeping secrets, and like yeah, it's all super
super
by the way, not surprising, all sketchy and gross. It feels sketchy and gross, but it is amazing to me to think that, okay, people are like, oh, it's nothing, let's go away. Well, it's like, well, you ginned it up for everyone. You sort of fed into the conspiracy theories, and Trump's hubris and his arrogance is so much that he really thought he was going to be able to make the conspiracy theorists stand down in MAGA and MAGA adjacent crazy QAnon stuff. And those people were like, no, when we have a conspiracy, we ain't quitting. And so they have not been able to control this at all, to the point that even folks on their side are like, oh, well, we should release something. And of course they've tried, but it's like a bunch of bullshit. But,
well, but that's first of all, just to be clear on the birthday book, I think the thing that's important about it is clearly the Journal has this on lock because they know exactly, or they knew exactly how Trump would respond. Also, it's Rupert Murdoch, just so we're clear, as the owner of the paper. Now, Fox News might not be covering it, his other property, because their entire thing is we're the propaganda outlet.
Yeah, they're different.
Right. But the Journal is, they still have editorial standards. Murdoch started out in newspapers. And so that's still a legitimate paper. And so,
right.
They had this on lock.
The reporting side has always been very legitimate. It's the editorial side that's been sketchy of the Wall Street Journal.
Although they have been like kind of
well, at some point.
But the thing about it that I think is interesting is like this was from 2003. So this is George W. Bush was president when this happened. So it just like all of Trump's like, oh, Obama wrote this and
crazy.
And it's a hoax. And it's like, nah, dude, this is before all of that. It's when you were still friends.
Right.
Right.
Very much
and so. Like you can't, and this is creepy as hell to your point. So it really just demonstrates like how Trump can't get out of this.
Because he's in it.
Right. But his whole thing, which is like, okay, I'm directing Pam Bondi to try to release some of his materials. It's like,
right. It's bullshit.
A small fraction of it. But I saw this, this was Ellie Honig on CNN, the FBI and Abby Phillip. The FBI actually has a lot of documents that don't need a judge to say it's okay.
Yeah.
So the FBI tomorrow could release a bunch of this. But Trump strangely has not directed his FBI to do so.
Right.
What does that tell you? But to me, the bigger tell is firing Maureen Comey,
which
who is
again,
Jim Comey, former FBI director's
which by the way,
daughter.
he sucks too. So this is not a.
Well, I'm not even going to get into that. But he was FBI director. Trump fired him because he basically wasn't a sufficient lackey, even though he's probably the reason Trump became president to begin with. But
yes,
topic for another day. But she worked on Epstein's prosecution before he died in prison.
Mm-hmm.
He prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
He prosecuted Diddy, that trial that just wrapped, and they fired her, right? Which is A, petty as hell.
Well,
but B, I mean, you have to wonder, like, I think the way they weave it into the narrative, right, is that she's a part of all of this, I guess. But it's sort of like, nah, dude, she was prosecuting Epstein.
Right, exactly.
And now she can talk because you fired her.
Good. Sing like a bird, girlfriend. Just go.
Sing like a bird.
But their whole behavior. Look, we'll see, because they have been trying constantly to try to get this to go away, and they haven't been able to. And by the way, it's part of it is because their own people were trying to quit or threaten to quit because of the shit show that it was, right? So like, it's not even consistent within their orbit, right? So, but these guys, they behave badly. They don't think it touches them. They just pretend like, and they just lie. So this is just this consistent behavior by Trump, and by others when it comes to this. And their obsession, by the way, with like, they've always, it is something where they sit there and they accuse, and they're like this pedophilia rings and all this stuff that they constantly try to stamp or accuse on Democrats. And you're like, if so, it's like, the accusation's a confession. And so it's just sort of like, it's the same sort of thing. I want to bring up, just like, because I hate him, Jim Jordan. And like, he was officially deposed today by folks who are suing Ohio State University for the sexual abuse that was happening at Ohio State when he was a wrestling coach there. And the more you read about the very specific examples that people give where Jim Jordan was around, and Jim Jordan saying, no, I don't, again, very carefully saying, I never saw anything or never heard anything. While then these descriptions of him being around the abuse and being very close to it and clearly being aware, it's just all there. So he's being deposed under.
What do you see happening to him?
I think he's just going to lie. I mean, these guys just think they can lie and nothing will happen. I really do. He's going to lie and assume nothing's going to happen, because there are people like Donald Trump who knows nothing about this, but then went and said, oh, I believe Jim Jordan. No question. He's a good guy. These other people are lying.
False,
and you're like,
false,
why don't you shut up? Shut up. And it's because that's what he would do.
Yeah.
Right. He's the same behavior, right? These guys are in and around it, if not participating in terrible things to people, abuse, sexual abuse. God, Donald Trump's already been sort of found guilty, and
civilly,
they don't care, and they think
found liable or whatever. Yeah.
Right. I think Jim Jordan is going to keep lying, and then I think other people are going to say he's lying, and then nothing will happen to him. It's really because he's not actually a defendant, by the way, just to be clear. Yeah. He was just in and around it and chose not to say anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, God, Larry, how am I supposed to transition here? We got to talk about Colbert.
Oh, which is sad, I think, from a pop culture perspective. And, it is fact. The world has changed so dramatically. Streaming and what is on broadcast television, what late night has changed.
Sure.
Right? So I think there's no question that's true. But this is the number one, by a lot, late night show.
Mm-hmm.
And CBS is saying they lost money on it, but by the way, their last earnings report, they did not say they lost money on it.
No.
And they were talking about how great it was and how important it was and how
They're
much
clearing $30 million annually, which ain't bad for linear.
So now all of a sudden what they're feeding to the Hollywood reporters and the CNNs of the world is that they were losing money. Who knows exactly, because you can fuss with the books. All I know is the last earnings report, when they were required to report to their shareholders, they were talking about the Late Show as it being very important and very good and great. So it was not bad just in the last earnings report. But what has happened just a few days ago was Stephen Colbert trashing CBS and calling them, saying that they basically settled this lawsuit, the government, Trump, and called it a bribe. So we do know that happened 3 days ago.
Yeah, and just like the bigger picture here, right? So Paramount, which is the parent company of CBS, they are in the midst of a sale worth about $8 billion, if I'm not.
Which they need approved desperately.
Which needs to be approved by the FCC.
Media is dying, which is true.
Which is true, by the FCC. The buyer of that is David Ellison and Skydance. David Ellison, if the last name sounds familiar, is the son of Larry Ellison, who is a billionaire and a friend of Trump, and they have a personal relationship. David Ellison, it's not, he has a history in Hollywood. He has a history, making movies and stuff like that. But clearly, the funding, is guaranteed because of his
Oracle money.
Because it's Oracle money. Yes. So they are trying to buy Paramount, and Paramount settled the $16 million, the lawsuit that Trump, ridiculous lawsuit.
Every legal expert says it's ridiculous.
It is. But they wanted... Right. And Trump had them over a barrel. He sued them for $1 billion or something insane. And they would have lost in court, but Sherry wants her money. She wants Sherry Redstone, who's
you don't want to
key stakeholder. She wants her money
in court and lose when it came to the when they had to look at it from approving the merger perspective.
Correct. Well, interestingly, David Ellison and his attorney met with the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, this week in Washington. And oftentimes that kind of conversation is something that precipitates, right, when decisions like this get made. Look, the timing of all of this, and this is actually the point I want to make, which is not like, a drive-by entertainment. When I saw the tweet or the notification that the Colbert Show had been canceled, it sent chills down my spine. Because if they can take out Stephen Colbert, and I'm not saying that's what, there's no obvious thing here, but the timing of all of this is to quote my 10-year-old, totally sus.
Yeah, it is sus.
It's super sus. And if you can take out, understanding that, like, when Stephen Colbert chose to retire or, leave the Late Show, like, in the normal course of things, as the #1 rated host for the show for the last 8 years, there's no question that the show was going to end. But that's not what happened here. Right. And the timing of it, and Trump today gloating about it, suggests this isn't just for financial reasons. I'm reminded of an old Simpsons episode. It's an old Treehouse of Horrors episode in which Willie is basically Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, and he has disappeared because he's basically died in the furnace before he becomes Freddy Krueger. And the principal Skinner comes out. He's like, "Why? There's no conspiracy about Janitor Willie. He just disappeared. He simply disappeared." And you're like,
what? It is totally suspect, and it feels very sure. The timing of it is what is the indicator. And I, as much as anyone, love a conspiracy theory. I will believe it. I'm it. Like, and look,
You're
this.
Mulder in this situation.
Oh, I
I'm
want to
Scully.
believe.
I'm
I
like,
want to believe. And so I do. And again, the inconsistency in sort of how folks are talking about it. And again, it's pretty hilarious because you then read what then right-wing outlets are trying to talk about how unprofitable the franchise is and like going in on that, and it's just sort of like everyone's talking points have been sent out, like the Daily Mail is like, but even the Daily Mail at the end of their article was like, but this was the #1 show and and it wasn't brought up at the earnings call and and so yeah, there's enough there that even something like the Daily Mail is like, this seems weird.
It is, because it is.
Right?
You don't cancel the #1 show.
Yeah, and not like that.
No.
Right? I think there's a way to do it. And maybe to the point, it could be hey, the least sketchy reason for it to be done is like, hey, they were going to cancel it anyway, but they want to sort of get the benefit of doing it now, right? Because they need this approval. That's the least sketch version. It's still sketch.
Wait, which oh, you mean the FCC? Oh, yeah.
Right. Because they're like, this was the call, but let's go ahead and just get this on the books so that we can grease the wheels here. That's like the most.
But why would you? No. But here's the thing, Larry. Okay. Why would you do it before the merger was approved? So there is a little bit of a something.
Well, you do it to get the merger approved.
Right. And that is why it's
right. Scary. I'm saying, like, he may have been on the chopping block anyway. They may have decided to get out of this, right? That very well may be true. But the timing, and I don't believe that's true fully, by the way.
No.
I think because I think you make these decisions with a bunch of factors involved. You're like, yeah, it doesn't make us as much money as it used to, but it makes us some money. And then you said, well, it doesn't make us enough money for us to put this in jeopardy. So
why would you do? But that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like, well, it's not making enough money. What does that mean?
Well, because you care about the merger. That's what I'm saying. It's still sketchy. I'm just saying, like, you care about the merger, and then you're like, well, it's not worth it. You make these decisions, right? It's like, okay, is this project worth the pain that it's creating me, even though it makes me a little bit of money? Right. And their pain was potentially not having the merger approved.
But right. But
yeah, totally sketch.
That gets to the government.
Right.
In
media
programming decisions.
Right. And as we've seen in a number of these things, and that is sort of been approached to try, like, he was suing for that very purpose. The suing was for that purpose. So if the suing is for that purpose, why would you not think then the behavior after the suit isn't a reply or reaction in kind?
Yeah.
Right. That is actually very logical. If I am suing you to try to get you to heal and then you heal, that's a pretty simple.
This fits very well within Trump's political style, which is domination.
Right.
So. All right. Well, that was awesome and depressing. Yeah, I'm empty. You're empty. Let's have a weekend.
Have a weekend, folks. Have a spritz. This was really
have a
good.
Spritz.
If you can find Select, by the way,
you're bougie as hell. Stop it.
Oh, of course.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.